Hello, YouTube viewers. We're talking about the Kavernacle's take on a leftist argument against voting Joe Biden for president.
So before you start watching this video, I will say if you are a vulnerable group, I guess, in the US, or if you're just someone who just can't stomach another 4 years of Trump, I totally understand voting Democrat for the presidency in November. But I guess this video is just going to make the argument why you shouldn't. Now, of course, Joe Biden is essentially the nominee now, with Bernie Sanders suspending his campaign earlier today, which means you can still vote for him in the primary, but he's not campaigning anymore. He wasn't doing so well anyway. And of course, he was doing well at a point, but because all these Democratic candidates dropped out and endorsed Joe Biden, that really united the centrists in the party, and Bernie sadly isn't going to win. So why you shouldn't vote for Biden, even if the alternative is Donald Trump. Now, there probably are some good reasons, which I'm going to outline, why you probably could vote for Biden. I'd say the main one is foreign policy being less extreme. And that is kind of going to be a theme with this, is that Joe Biden will just be less extreme than Donald Trump. Like Obama was less extreme, like Bill Clinton was less extreme. They are less extreme, but the core of it is still pretty similar, and that's what I'm going to really get at here. So yes, Joe Biden, I don't think, would start war with Iran. He wouldn't go absolutely crazy like Donald Trump is in terms of his hostility towards Iran, and that is really concerning. So I get that as a potential point. Joe Biden was, of course, part of the Obama administration who agreed the Iran nuclear deal. So that is just one point I can think of in his favour. And in terms of the Supreme Court,
Honestly, the fact that Joe Biden is very likely to reinstate the Iran deal if he can get Iran to agree to it again, is likely to reinstate the Paris Climate Accords. Those are two things that, given the binary choice between Trump and Biden, which is what it comes down to in our two-party system, the Paris Climate Accords and the Iran nuclear deal are two incredibly important things that Biden will almost certainly do that Trump will definitely never do.
justices, I see this argument going around a lot. I was just researching the age of the people on the Supreme Court. So obviously Ruth Bader Ginsburg is the big one who could retire because she's 87. But if she goes and is replaced by a Democrat, the makeup of the Supreme Court is still the same, and the Republicans have a majority on it. There's another guy called...
But preventing Ruth Bader Ginsburg's seat from being taken by a conservative means that the court doesn't go further red. Right now it's 5-4. That's not great, but it's better than 6-3, or what we could see 7-2 if Trump gets 4 more years.
Stephen Breyer, who's 81, so potentially could do another term of a presidency, and if he wants to stay in to stop Trump being more monstrous, he could. But they have a majority, and you don't need a massive majority, you just need one. So it doesn't change anything.
It does change things because not all of the justices are hardline Trumpists. Yes, Kavanaugh is, Gorsuch probably is. But if he gets to stick 1 or 2 more judges on there, then that is 4 Trumpist judges. Meaning that even if the other 5 all die in a horrific plane crash during the Democratic administration, and we're actually able to get actual progressive or good people on the bench, then there's still that slim majority. But if there's something one of those justices disagrees on, or whatever happens, a 5-4 is not a safe bench. And we need to stop it from becoming 6-3 or 7-2, because 5-4 we can convince one of the older people to join us, to join the dissent and thus change the ruling. With a 6-3 or 7-2, especially given that will be 3 or 4 Trumpist judges, the Supreme Court is lost for a generation. And then you can kiss Roe v. Wade goodbye, you can kiss gay rights, you can kiss a lot of things that have been fought for the last 50 years. They will be gone.
I do see that argument being, going around on Twitter. But yeah, if Ruth Bader Ginsburg retires, you replace her with another Democrat, Republicans still have a majority in the Supreme Court, and that's just a fact. Joe Biden ain't going to change that. he can appoint a Democrat replacement, or Donald Trump can ensure there is a larger majority, I guess. But at the end of the day, in the immediate, I guess, effect of it is that it won't change anything. Now let's get into my point of why you shouldn't vote for Joe Biden. So the Democrats have played this game before, right? They screwed Bernie in 2016.
I think I know where he's going to go with this argument. And the problem with it is it presupposes the Democratic Party actually cares over much about winning the presidency. Like, I'm not going to say the Democratic Party doesn't want to be Donald Trump, but I am saying that they're not overly concerned about actually winning the election. Because if they win the presidency, then that means that the Democratic Party will have to follow through on many of the promises they've made over the last 5 to 10 years. And if they actually had to do that, then that would mean their corporate donors would make less money, which means that their donations would go down. So I'm not convinced that the Democratic Party wants to win, so doing this withholding our vote thing isn't going to do a whole lot to convince the Democrats to go along with us.
Nominated Hillary Clinton. So I totally understand everyone who voted Hillary Clinton. Here you have Donald Trump talking about the most awful things, Muslim bans, building a wall. Even though he said he was an isolationist in terms of foreign policy, he said some really hostile things, and I guess his overall craziness was really scary. So I totally understand progressive and leftist types biting their tongue and saying, I will vote for Hillary Clinton. I really don't want to. She is an awful candidate, has an awful history, is tied to an awful administration in terms of the Clinton administration, is tied to another one that isn't so great in the Obama administration, but Donald Trump is a monster. But now the Democrats have done it again. And they're saying, you've got to vote for Joe Biden. He is not Donald Trump. Donald Trump, he's a threat to our democracy. He's a threat to the American image on the world stage. You just have to get Trump out. And that is all that matters, getting Trump out. But that was the...
I mean, if the election is tomorrow, Biden loses full stop, Trump is more popular now than when he was elected in 2016. Yes, I agree. I think that if the election happens now, Trump wins. And I don't know that the next few months are going to change that. But they could. If Trump does some head-ass thing like relaxing social distancing or basically saying, no, everyone needs to go back to work, well, that will drive more people to dislike Trump. But I hope he doesn't do that, because that would mean a lot of people would die. Even if it would almost guarantee that Biden would win, if for no other reason than people aren't going to vote for the guy who killed their grandma.
The argument last time in terms of stopping Trump, and now it's getting Trump out. But the candidate you have run this time is, in my opinion, even worse than Hillary Clinton. It doesn't even seem like you can force him to change his mind. He said he would veto Medicare for all 3 times during a global pandemic where millions upon millions of Americans are out of work. And of course, as we all know, American healthcare is pretty much always tied to someone.
Yes, he said he would veto Medicare for all. God, I hate defending Biden against other leftists, but there's so many head-ass takes I've had to deal with. Biden has said he would veto Medicare for all for reasons. His take is a slightly more nuanced, but I don't want to go into that. However, Biden's proposal does insure more people. It doesn't solve the problem, but it does make it a little bit better. And I don't think we create a better world by saying, fuck those people who don't have insurance, leave Trump in power so things get even worse, and maybe some people will want to take to the streets. I don't believe in that kind of accelerationist rhetoric. I don't think that has good outcomes in this particular situation. He said if it's not financially solvent, he would veto it, is what he said. He was playing into the rhetoric that M4A wouldn't work. Exactly, yes. And also, this presumes that Biden has an independent thought in his head, which at this point, I don't know I believe. But again, we have to go for good outcomes. And I don't think Trump will lead to good outcomes. Certainly not the best outcomes.
Job. And he said during this time where loads of people losing their jobs and their healthcare that he would veto universal healthcare. Again, in my mind, he's worse than Hillary Clinton. Now, on top of that, I'm just sort of basing that.
I don't know if I'd say worse than Hillary Clinton. Hillary is just, she's a pantsuit filled with focus testing and neoliberalism. Biden has actually expressed actual personal opinions, such as his eulogizing Strom Thurmond and I don't want my kids growing up in a racial jungle. But Biden being worse than Hillary Clinton, or excuse me, Hillary Clinton being worse than Biden, I don't know. I think that Biden is probably worse than Hillary. But given that we're probably just going to get Hillary anyway, what does it matter?
On a few comments, he doesn't even have some substantive policies. So we can imagine he would, I guess, just be an extension of the Obama administration, but probably be more right wing if you look into his history. Now, in terms of the centrist Democrats, Nancy Pelosi, Tom Perez, people who sort of orchestrated this stuff, do you think you should reward them again with your vote just because it's Trump? They can do whatever they want to your candidate and your movement. They can put whoever they want up as the nominee, and they think you are going to vote for them. We don't care. We don't have to change. We saw you in 2016. We even blame you for us losing in 2016. So if we really cared, maybe we try to appeal to the progressive wing a bit more. But no, let's run someone who's even worse. Let's run someone who has a worse policy history because he was a senator for so long, whether that is fighting against busing, working with segregationists, working with, I guess, really, what's the word I'm looking for? I'd say he's the mass incarceration zealot for the crime bill, but he also worked with the segregationists on the war on drugs. He is responsible for so many people going to prison. Please, if you haven't already, look into the crime bill and look into how instrumental he was in writing that and passing it. It tripled the US prison population. It took a racist.
And Trump is wanting to put more people in prison. Look, Biden is not a good guy, but he's better than Trump. He's probably worse than Hillary, but he's better than Trump. Trump is a particularly bad example of conservative politics, let's put it mildly. I'm not saying Trump is unique or anything like that. He's the natural result of the neoliberal politics we've had since 2008. But Biden is better than Trump, if only by a hair. And when we're dealing with a two-party system, with first-past-the-post voting, you have to vote for the lesser of two evils, or you're tacitly condoning the greater of two evils. Because not taking an action is the same as acting in a binary choice system like this.
Criminal justice system made it far worse, and 3 strikes and you're out. Americans, do you know anyone who's in prison for non-violent drug offences who's been a victim of 3 strikes and you're out? Because isn't it crazy that he took a system that was racist, applied this rule so you can go to prison for life for weed offences? And of course, in terms of the US justice system, who does that affect the most? Minorities and the powerless in a lot of instances. So that is who Joe Biden is. We don't even need to talk about it.
Yes, the drug war was started to get Mexicans and black people. This is a matter of public record, by the way. They went after weed to get Mexicans, and they went after heroin to get black people. This is from the stuttering mouth of Richard Nixon himself. Or one of his advisors, I can't remember which at this point, but it's a matter of public record.
Views on things like the Iraq War or things like Anita Hill. If we're talking about Supreme Court, he didn't do anything apart from vote no. He didn't do anything to stop Clarence Thomas getting in. He totally botched that, and we're meant to trust him with the next Supreme Court nomination. So again, awful person, awful policies, and there's always going to be another Trump. I think that's something people need to realize. They're running Joe Biden now and saying he's not Trump.
Wasn't the whole Clarence Thomas, Anita Hill thing that he attempted to discredit Anita Hill and then Clarence Thomas got in anyway? I don't think it was his job to stop Clarence Thomas. He was trying to boost Clarence Thomas. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Biden doesn't have a great track record on the Supreme Court. Surprise, surprise. Biden has a shit track record in just about everything except playing second fiddle to a black man, which is why he won so many black votes. That's something I actually learned recently here. A lot of the reason why a lot of black people support Biden is because he was VP for 8 years to a black man. And to see someone who has this history as a racist, to see him go up there and happily, enthusiastically play second chair to a black man, did a lot of work in the black community.
So that's good. But there's always going to be another Trump. If Mike Pence ran next, he's another Trump because he's another crazy guy. The Republicans are so fundamentally crazy. They make the Democrats look good by association, but the Democrats aren't good. I've talked multiple times. In this country where I live, Great Britain, they would be in the right wing of the Tory party because of what they believe in. That is not really a choice, is it? And let's not mention he is accused of raping someone. And there's videos of him being...
And Trump is credibly accused of raping many, many more people. This is not a valid argument, in my opinion. Biden was accused of raping someone. No matter what happens, barring meteors striking Trump and Biden simultaneously, or the CIA decides to get out their heart attack gun and shoot Biden and Trump instead of Bernie again, we're going to be electing a rapist. That sucks, and I know there are a lot of people who are hurt by that, and I am sorry for that. But if we want to create a world where someone who is credibly accused of sexual assault has no chance of being the president, today, in 2020, we have to vote for the lesser rapist. I know that sucks, but it's where we are. It's the world we live in, and if we want to change it, we have to work within the system, because unfortunately I don't think we have the people to change the system at this time. And we can work to grow people who share our beliefs, and that will be easier without a fascist in the White House, with Nazi advisors.
Super inappropriate with women. So essentially in America what you have now is a choice between two rapists. And you better vote for this one, you better vote for our rapist, because if you don't, we will blame you for losing against Donald Trump. I would say your only power in a...
If Biden wins, we're going to be told, looks like we didn't need you, Bernie Bros. If Biden loses, we're going to get blamed for not voting. It doesn't matter what you do. The establishment is either going to dismiss you or hate you, no matter what happens in November. But you know what helps when people start blaming you like that? Knowing that you did all you could to create a better outcome.
System like this, and you know, Britain is bad as well, but America is even worse. Your only power in a rigged system like that is withholding your vote from Joe Biden or voting third party.
Not in a first past the post system. The UK has a parliamentary system, which means that as long as your party that you agree with most ideologically gets above a certain percentage, they can have a say in the government. And if nobody has a clear majority, then they can create a coalition government. In America, we have first past the post and we vote for our individual people. We're not voting the Democratic Party into office. We're voting for Joe Biden. And if Howie Hawkins gets 10% of the vote nationwide, that's just 10% that didn't go to either Trump or Biden. It has no impact on policy. All it can do is pull votes away from one of the two parties. That is why third parties are considered spoilers, because they always tend to be someone who's just a different version of the Democrat or Republican. And that means that if people like Trump, but the Libertarian is really popular, that could suck votes away from Trump. Same thing, Howie Hawkins is getting a lot of talk in leftist circles that I've seen online. Because he's basically the Green Party Bernie. This is not the time to vote third party. When we're making the choice between a neocon and a neoliberal, that's fine. But we're looking at a difference between a fascist and someone who at least has to pretend to be neoliberal.
Because if you keep voting for people like Joe Biden, if he wins, the centre seem vindicated, but you know millions upon millions bit their tongue because they didn't want another 4 years of Donald Trump. But again, what I feel like, there is always going to be another Trump. They're always going to frame it this way. Oh, Bernie isn't electable. Next time it will be another progressive who isn't electable. We have to beat whoever, Mike Pence. We've got to beat Ted Cruz. They are insane. We can't have them in. So vote blue.
The thing that scares me is the Republicans running someone like Trump, but not as rough around the edges in 2024. Someone like a Stephen Miller, or I don't even know who. Someone with Trump's policies, but not expressed in the brazen and open way that Trump does. If Biden wins, we're almost certainly going to be dealing with his VP for the next 3.5 years after Biden gets in. If Trump gets 4 more years, then we almost certainly lose control of the country because he will stack the courts, the local courts, the lower level courts with judges who agree with him and who disagree with anything to the right or to the left of him.
Blue no matter who. You've seen Blue MAGA trot this out. Vote blue no matter who, because the alternative is so bad. Well, how much of a choice is it to have 2 racist old white men, 2 people with awful political histories, 2 people...
If you essentialize anything, you can make it sound bad. Biden is better than Trump. He's not good, but he is better than Trump. And again, I feel like a broken record, but he's just saying the same thing over and over again, too. In a first-past-the-post voting system with 2 major parties like this, you either vote for Party A or Party B doesn't get a vote. Voting third party doesn't do anything. It's unfortunate. I wish it did more, but it doesn't. This is why we need election reform in America. We're still running on democracy beta 0.2. We've got like version 2.0 in fucking Scandinavia, but we're on version beta 0.2.
Credibly accused of rape and sexual assault, and you're saying you've got to vote for one of them. If I was an American, I could not stomach saying to anyone I voted for a rapist, and I'd stop it at that. But I couldn't stomach voting for someone like Biden who had this political history. So I would argue, and you don't have to do it, I understand why you wouldn't, I would argue, as a citizen, your only power essentially is your vote. So don't keep giving the Democrats your vote when they haven't earned it. Again, 2016, I understand. They didn't learn their lessons. They did the same thing again. They're running Joe Biden, who's further right, who is worse than Hillary Clinton. And they expect you to bite your tongue again and just do it. They'll screw your nominee constantly. All this shady stuff the DNC do. And then they'll say, you're going to vote for him anyway, so we don't care. We don't need to change. We haven't changed, and we're not going to. And they won't change again. When Mayor Pete runs in 4 years, in 8 years, you know, you've seen his platform. Is it that different from most centrist Dems? Maybe it's...
Mayor Pete won't run. He's created in a lab and only has a lifespan of 2 years, so he's going to expire sometime in the summer. But his point does stand. The other issue is that there's no reason to believe the Democratic Party is paying attention to the left. There's an interview with a former DNC organizer who said, "We never listen to people on the left." Why? Because where the hell else are they going to go? They're definitely not going to side with Republicans, and there's no other party. So we have no reason to listen to the left. But part of that is that the left is not big enough to really threaten the election. As much as they blame us for 2016, the fact of the matter is 2016 was a matter of a few thousand votes in a couple of counties. If those votes had gone slightly differently, Clinton would have won. It wasn't Bernie Bros staying home. It was that Clinton was remarkably unlikable, and Trump made the mouth sounds that people in the Rust Belt wanted to hear.
It's a bit more spiced up. He's a young guy. It's a bit more modern. But the core of it is the same. The core of the American empire is the same within the centrist Democrats and the Republicans. So what it will essentially be is America going back to normal under Joe Biden. And back to normal in America means thousands upon thousands of people dying without health care. Thousands of people from outside America being killed by drone strikes and US imperialism. It is Wall Street getting away with what they want. It's pharmaceutical companies having a monopoly on your lives because there is no body in America to negotiate drug prices like we have in a country like Britain. Not perfect, but at least you have some sort of government intervention, which means pharmaceutical companies, some of the most evil companies on this earth, can't just price gouge you and do the most awful stuff like Purdue Pharma and the opioid crisis. So again, Joe Biden will be a return to Obama-style policies. And maybe a lot of liberals and privileged middle-class people can say, that's fine with me, I can be proud of my president again. He won't change much, maybe dial it down a bit, back to normal, so I don't have to pay attention to politics anymore. But for the most vulnerable, there is not a choice to vote for Joe Biden because you need someone to change your life. There's people in America whose lives are at stake in this election, and neither candidate is going to save them.
But Joe Biden is going to do more for those people than Trump will. Trump is actively working against marginalized communities. Biden will at least take some of the pressure off. And I do think the DNC can be influenced into stopping the crackdown on immigrants. And while I don't think we're going to see an end to children in cages under a Biden presidency, I do think that there will be fewer people in those cages, which it can only be a good thing. And especially if Bernie gets enough delegates to influence the DNC, we may be able to see him scale back ICE, if not abolish it. These are all things that are possible, even if unlikely under a Biden presidency, but impossible in a Trump presidency.
And I just find it a disgusting choice that you have to choose between one evil rapist or another. And both, in my opinion, maybe not are bad in different ways, but it's like that Geralt quote from The Witcher, if I have to choose between two evils, I'd rather not choose at all. And I understand totally if you're saying that is such a privileged position, but again...
The difference is that is in the context between helping one monster or helping another, and the third option Geralt can take there is to pull out his silver sword and kill them. We don't really have a third option here. I agree. I prefer to live in a situation where I don't have to choose between the lesser of two evils. And I also see and agree how choosing the lesser of two evils has caused things to drift into Trump. I totally get it. But this is the situation we're in. I implore you, my comrades, do not let your feelings interfere with creating a better world for the marginalized communities in America. Trump will not do that. Biden won't do it either. But he'll do it more so than Trump will.
And I feel like in this type of democracy, you just have to show the Democrats. You've got to show them again. They can't put Biden forward just because it's Trump again. They've got to know you don't earn their vote by screwing over your candidate and running a candidate who believes in everything that you don't. Again, in this country, he would be in the complete opposite side to Bernie. They'd literally be like that on the political spectrum, complete opposite sides. But somehow you're meant to say Bernie voters should transition to Biden voters. They should become Biden voters in the general. Anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comments. Please like and maybe subscribe. Follow me on social media at the Kavernacle on Twitter, Instagram.
I don't know. This guy seems like a good, intelligent person. I don't want to shit talk him too much. But it does seem that he doesn't fully understand what the American electorate is like. We can't vote third party because that is throwing away your vote. I know people hate to hear that and that it's used a lot by neoliberals to shame Bernie supporters, but it's true. Especially in this election, you are doing more harm by voting for Trump or Howie Hawkins or Vermin Supreme. If you throw your vote away on a third party, you are tacitly enabling Trump. I'm sorry if that's not what you want to hear, but it is the truth. And yeah, there's a lot of Europeans weighing in like this because Europe has parliamentary systems where if you don't like a given candidate, there are other options to vote for because they have things like ranked choice voting or a parliamentary system or something like that. Voting Biden will empower Democrats even more to screw any progressives in the future. No, because I'm hoping that new progressives will learn from Bernie and learn that you can't play by the neoliberal rules of civility. You have to be willing to go in and attack them. You have to be willing to attack the establishment, and particularly the establishment candidate. If you call them corrupt, stick by it. You can't back off and apologize and say, no, they're not corrupt. The problem is we really don't have a long game. Climate change is a real big deadline that's coming up here in like 10 years. And if we don't do something to fix the system and do things to repair the environment, we're going to see a collapse of the system. So yeah, I don't disagree with many of his statements, but I do disagree with his main argument, which is that you shouldn't vote for Biden because it's rewarding the Democratic Party, and I don't think the Democratic Party actually cares about winning. Hey, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the show. If you liked it, like, share, subscribe, and leave a comment. Thank you. See you next time.